I'm gonna record this. What I basically want to do is sketch out my pose here that I'm starting with, but I want to do it lightly. I don't necessarily want any of these marks to be in my final image. I've got back here doo, 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 doo. my kind of figure reference sheet, so I can turn back and use this if I need to figure out how many heads something is up. This one's pretty straightforward, so that should be useful if I need it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by drawing in the torso. Now I can start with the head if I want, but I have to keep in mind how tall the figure is and make the head accordingly sized. It's nice to start with the torso because once I draw the torso in, I've got a pretty good idea of where everything else is going to be. Um, you know what? I'm going to maybe do a different pose. I'm going to do pose number 5 here because it's a little more interesting. So the first thing I want to look at is Tater tot, quiet. I want to look at the angle of the shoulders. So I'm going to hold my pencil out and kind of match the angle of the shoulders that I see and use that as a guide. So I'm sighting it right now. You can't really see, but there we go. All right. So I'm going to try to match that angle where I want the shoulders to be. I'm just going to kind of make a light mark using the side of my pencil. All right. Same idea for the hips. This is it's kind of a interesting pose because we've got hips going a different sort of direction as the shoulders. All right, now that I've laid these in, I've got a pretty good idea of how much space my figure is going to take up. Okay, so we'll look at this. The bottom of the hips we have here at about the 4 heads mark. So it's going to be about this much taller. We've got like another head on top of the shoulders here. So that seems to be like spaced pretty well. It seems like it's going to fit all right. All right. So before we make a lot of marks on here, it makes sense to kind of make sure that everything's going to fit correctly. Okay. And also sketch in the head. So I've got about a half a head between the shoulders and the head itself for the length of the neck. And kind of loosely sketch in my head here. Probably finish worrying about my torso first, but that's okay. And then I can kind of measure it. So there should be one head here, 1, 2, 3 to the bottom of the hips. So that's about right. If I think about this initial line as being kind of right through the center of the hips. Okay? All right, so now what I want to look at is something called the white line. So I kind of, for my figure studies, sometimes you'll use the spine and you'll draw the curvature of the spine to help you get the torso correct. But there's something else that's sometimes more useful, which is called the white line. So the white line is kind of the opposite of the spine. So if you think about a line running from your chin, down your neck, through your sternum, through your navel, all the way down your torso, that would be the white line. Okay, so it's kind of similar to the spine, but it's on the other side. Alright, so our white line here would be kind of curves here for the chest, and then the stomach kind of seems to curve around like this. And that's just kind of a center line for the torso here. So having that curvature is really useful. Alright, so I'm going to draw in where the torso is. He's got his arm kind of covering it. So here's kind of my torso shape. I'm going to have a shoulder right about here. I can have kind of a mix of, it's got a big shrug. I want to get that in. So the shoulder's more up here. So I can make kind of a mix of almost like a mannequin sort of figure and a skeleton sort of figure. The other shoulder's down here. Right. So I don't see that trapezius muscle. but I see the neck coming up right here. And then run kind of down like this. All right. So next I'm going to try to figure out like where the elbow is. So the elbow seems to be sticking out from the shoulder a little bit. It's about here. And then the hand kind of comes this way. So I can sketch in the arm right here. And I feel like this guy's doing hands behind the back. We don't like that. Anytime that you do hands behind the back in art class, your teacher's going to assume that it's because you don't want to draw hands. I'll move this up a little bit. So we try to avoid it. So I'm going to put, instead of hands behind the back, I'm going to put hands on hips. So let's connect that. So you can see, even though I'm not doing the original pose, I'm altering things a little bit. I can do that, but the pose sheet helps give me like some ideas for it. Other hand's going to be like this. I'll make this one going backwards. So this elbow is actually a little lower because it's kind of shrugging this shoulder here. So this elbow stays a little bit lower down. And then it's going to go like this. And this hand's going to kind of be on the hips, but kind of like wrist into hips. Something like that. And this one's going to be fingers like that. Alright, so let's figure out the rest of this pose. Knee. So the knee here, the way this works, we got kind of this line that goes like this. And the legs kind of cross each other, like super casually. So let's figure out where that knee is. If we want to figure out how far down to make that knee, the leg is facing us directly. Not that the woman wouldn't be much different. So sort of from the hip, we've got about 2 heads worth of thigh, and then a little bit more for the lower leg. So I can actually measure that if I want and mark 2 heads. 1, 2. So the knee would probably be about here. And now I want to look at, like, where is it relative to the rest of this? It's pretty far over. I'm going to put it more like here. And then put the, now, maybe this comes down more like this. Yeah, so we'll put the heel right there. Okay, connect that. Again, I'm trying to keep everything real light. So this one's a little bit different. The other knee's going to be sticking out a little bit, so it's about here. I'm looking at it. It looks like it's kind of directly below the elbow here, this elbow. I'm going to kind of position it there. So he's like kind of leaning up against the wall. And then this one, this foot, is kind of standing on the toes a little bit, or on the ball of the foot. Alright. So there I've basically got my sketch in. So that's kind of my lay-in. Where do we take it from there? So now I can build my character on top of this once I've got that lay-in. So let's try to decide what kind of guy we're looking for. I want to do like a guy in a suit, I think. Let me think. Which side goes over which? It's going to be kind of like this. Here we go. And now I can start kind of sketching in, or if I want to, I can make it a little more firm at this point in time. I'm going to kind of keep this loose so that I can do it quickly. And if you wanted to, it's kind of a quicker sketchbook thing today, so you don't necessarily need to, but if you wanted to, you could use some of those clothing references to help you kind of lay some folds into your fabrics and make them look really nice. I'm not going to worry about that, but you could. I want him to be looking up a little bit. Try to keep this quick and simple. So I apologize if things aren't super impressive. Try not to use too much time here so you have plenty of time to complete your assignment. All right, so there we go. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense to you. I think I kind of maybe squished his legs, or maybe it's just, maybe my camera's angle is a little weird. Anyway, hopefully you get the idea there. Yeah, pick a pose and sketch it out real light, and then lay in your character on top of it. Maybe think about like what kind of person you're drawing. Tell a little story about him. We did a surfer earlier in class. That was pretty fun. I don't know what this guy is. Maybe some kind of agent or producer or something. Anyway, I think the kind of more details you make up, the funner it tends to be in the end. All right.